Eighth season of the MIT Enterprise Forum Software SIG. We have a packed house here and great panelists, and actually even one of the panelists is sitting out here in the audience with us. But I want to thank you for coming out. And Shirish, actually, I can run through the pitch, but let me introduce Shirish Fleming, who is the executive director of the MIT Enterprise Forum, who makes this all possible. And Shirish was actually asked, and I'm sorry, this is a no-pitch zone, largely. But we do have to pitch one thing for sure, and that's the forum. So we will do that. Otherwise, I think Trish will pull the plug on us. So the forum is, as I read Trish's notes to me, is a well-established community of entrepreneurs and the community that supports them. And I'm sorry if I'm reading, but I am reading. Our mission is to educate, inspire, connect, assist, advise early-stage startups and to grow innovation, an innovation base here in Cambridge. I would actually frankly say the Boston area. Hey. I'm in the Innovation District, so.
We're the original Innovation District.
Yeah, but it's too pricey. These are just a few of the companies that I believe have were impacted by or started here at the forum. There are several tracks. The forum, and let me get a quick intervention. I think Trish wanted some perspective, a very quick perspective on what I, for example, as a forum member get and what you'll all get. I'm a service provider because I'm a lawyer. But there are other service providers here. This SIG actually tends to be more entrepreneurs, more technologists. But whatever you do, what I've seen over the umpteen years, the 8 years run this SIG and otherwise, a lot of, I'll say pairings, which may not be the politically correct word, but a lot of meeting of folks both who are in business and starting businesses. From our end as service providers, yeah, we see some work from the forum. I think it's more a volunteer from our perspective. But the flip side is, not long ago I saw Shirish talking to other folks, Shirish who's going to be speaking to you later. I saw Shirish talking with Chris, one of our other organizers, about getting together as a business. I've seen these guys and other entrepreneurs talking with still others about forming businesses and about working for one another. So we see, I know in the 8 years of helping run and organize this group, we see a lot of interaction. I think that's what Shirish will argue and will suggest you should get out of this group. You're not going to get it largely just by sitting, but by mingling. We'll do less of that during the presentation today and more of it before and after. Moving back to the sort of formal spiel here. The forum is broken up into a series of sort of several tracks. There are startup clinics, which I think most of us are familiar with. If you know anything about the forum, you know the startup track, the startup clinics. That's where an early stage company will get up and make a pitch. They'll be voted on or they'll be critiqued. Very educational, very interesting, and we hope we have a small flavor of that here. There's a CEO series for those of you who have already started businesses. They could be quite early stage businesses. I don't think, maybe the guy who's leading HP will join us next year. We won't go there. He's doing a great job. But there's a CEO series as well. The innovation series, Trish, one sentence, the innovation series is?
Large inspirational conversations with speakers ranging from Peter Thiel, Michael Dell. We're working on Matt Damon right now. We've got the guy from Safe Water, I can't remember. I mean, we get some really fabulous speakers. And we had a great program last night on social innovation to social business impact.
Okay, that's the real action. And the special interest groups. This is one of them, and in a sense, many of them are like this. They're all run a little differently. Kevin Wyant from the Digital Media SIG is back there running the console, I think, or at least looks like he's running the console. There's the software SIG, Digital Media SIG, there's healthcare SIG now, there's auto sensing, which I think we know is RFID, but a lot of SIGs, all different flavor, but I think they're very much content driven. Some more networking than this one, some are more networking oriented than this SIG is, but you should explore them. They're actually a great resource. Kevin runs a great one, and I suspect the healthcare is phenomenal as well. And I think that okay, quick. You guys can read a calendar as well as I can. Go to the MIT site, look at the calendar, a lot of stuff coming up. Finally, forum couldn't run without sponsors. Firm IMAX a sponsor. There's a lot of other service providers and probably largely service providers are sponsors. I don't think that's a coincidence. But there's also Microsoft as well. But the forum couldn't run without it. If you're in an organization that can help sponsor the SIG, they need your money, they need your support. The flip side is there are even more members. These are some of the companies from which members come. And this is a very small sampling. You can just imagine. I think there's probably no more than 30 icons on that page. And I suspect if we put all your companies up there, we'd double or triple that. Thanks. We need volunteers. And oh, yes, how could I forget? There is a phenomenal conference coming up. I believe it's called MTech, sponsored by Technology Review. I grew up in Ann Arbor, so MTech to me means University of Michigan. Here it means something else apparently. But anyway, Technology Review is sponsoring MTech, and there is they are giving away a pass to the conference. All you need to do is go to the MIT Enterprise Forum site and
Facebook page. Tell us how you have used the forum. If you are a non-member and you join before October 12th, you will be entered for the drawing for this. If you're a forum member, tell us your story on the Facebook page. You'll also be entered for the drawing. We have one ticket. It's a $2,000 price tag, and we're giving it away to one lucky person. But you got to basically join or tell us your story.
okay, moving on. Oh, sorry. Okay, so do that. Do that. Now, that said, let me quick introduction, more of an introduction. So I'm David Powsner, I'm a lawyer, patent lawyer, I work at a local firm, but along with Shirish, Mike, Sanjay, and others, we organize a SIG. We welcome others to help organize it. We're in our 8th year. We used to be, I'm going to try to get through this quickly because we've got to get through the program. We started out as being very technology oriented. Computers in space, quantum computing and the like. And that's all very interesting, but it's not necessarily as helpful for today's entrepreneur. About 4 or 5 years ago, we shifted over to a more traditional entrepreneurial program. This is the sort of the current manifestation of it. We've realized over the years that we compete ourselves. This is in a way a business. We don't get paid for it per se. But this is a business, and we realize that we're running into our own roadblocks. It's largely called the rest of the MIT Enterprise Forum. Our twist on it, and what we hope is giving you folks value, and what we hope to see you back again, is to add, in addition to our usual entrepreneurial bent, to add a little more technology. So this year we'll have a series of programs that are largely we'll go through the basic phases of business, not business development, but starting a business and getting the business running. If I can get this up, you'll see what that is. But we're going to add a twist of iPhone to it because we think that could be of value to the community. So tonight's program is going to be, at least the way I look at it, I think it's called Starting an iPhone App Business, but to me it's largely platform selection and a whole bunch of bigger picture ideas. And Sanjay is going to take over from there.
We might just mention what we used to do, but we can't do it today because we can't go through everybody.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, yes. Shirish points out that normally we go through the whole crew and have everyone introduce themselves. I think Sanjay's going to try some variant of that.
I think we'll have a modification of that. Only burning questions at this stage, please.
I just came up from New York just for this. Do you have anything in New York?
Yes, there is a New York chapter. If you go to the forum's website, I think it's pretty easy. You can click on the About the Forum, go, and it'll take you down to the New York City chapter.
Thank you.
And also you can leave your business card or whatever, we'll get it to Trish later on. So first announcement, this event is being videotaped. So if you don't want your pretty face out in the wild, you should not be here.
Or even your voice, because I don't think, we're not going to move the video machines. People will hear your voice. So if your wife thinks you're having an affair right now, this is not the place to be.
And that also applies to you guys, the speakers. Stage, you should be mindful that it's being videotaped, live blogging, tweeting going on. So if there's something you do not want to say, this is not the forum. Having said that, I think this is an amazing turnout. Thank you very much for looking to spend an hour, hour and a half with us here. And normally we get about 25 to 30 people. We go around, right around your name, what you do and all that. Today we just won't have that time, unfortunately. So we'll just do a few show of hands just so that we all know who's in the room. It's also good for the speakers. Who here is an entrepreneur right now? Great. Keep your hands up if you are in the mobile app space. Not necessarily. Good. It's a very good showing. So who here is an investor? Nobody? Yeah. Okay. I was just about to say it's a great record, but okay, it's a good enough record. and other service providers, consultants and so forth, yeah. So historically, this particular SIG has been very, very heavy on, operating companies, but more on entrepreneurs. And today, we have 3 amazing founder CEOs. So the way we're going to run it is each person will have exactly 10 minutes. They'll introduce themselves. You can also see their bios. I'm not going to read it. And then I'll just cut them off. We will, after 30 minutes, have a Q&A of about 10 minutes. We will then have Shirish come up and sort of almost say, if you were to actually create an iPhone app right now, how would you do it? Just a recipe. So,
It'll be 10 minutes or less.
and it'll be 10 minutes or less. And then we'll have free-for-all Q&A. I'd love it if you didn't ask any questions while these 3 gentlemen are up here, but you have plenty of time at the end. Is that good? So one final show of hands.
I think you mean at the end of the 10-minute spiels.
That's right. So after 30 minutes. So one final show of hands. It's your question. Who has created an iPhone app? Okay, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
So.
For the next one.
Yeah, so we thought it'd be 1 or 2 people and they were going to talk about their app. So because there's a no, spiel zone, no selling zone, and this applies to the speakers as well. With that, I'll just say this is the order in which we're going to go. First, we're going to have Daniel Katcher, founder CEO of Rocket Farm Studios, speak. He's more on the services side of creating apps. So he'll tell you more. After that, after 10 minutes of his remarks, we'll have Punit Shah, founder CEO of Zazu, and then after that we'll have Rosen of Drync. And we are running a little bit late, so we'll go right into it.
Excellent.
Daniel.
Great, thank you. Hope everyone can hear me okay. I'll start by saying just the tiniest bit about my background. So I was a Tufts guy undergrad, went to Carnegie Mellon, did my grad work there, so hopefully the MIT crowd is not mad at me for going there. But I came back to here in kind of the late 90s. I'll just give you a little history so you can understand where Rocket Farm comes in. And when I came back here, I was really early in at a company called Punit, which was in the late 90s. And right around when the internet was hitting and companies everywhere were asking the question, what do we do about the internet? And so if everyone remembers that time, there was Vineet, Sapient, and a whole bunch of other companies, and we rode the dot-com boom up, and then fell down here. And at the time, we were selling at Vineet. We basically sell 3 different aspects to help companies figure out what to do, which is you got to think about the business, you got to think about design for the internet, which was a brand new medium, and then you have to think about the technology. So fast forward that to, I don't know, about 3.5, 4 years ago, I was doing a bunch of work with folks at Quattro Wireless. That was a company that got bought by Apple and became iAds. And then the iPhone hit. And when the iPhone hit, looked at it, and people were very emotional about it. And some people remember saying, this is the mobile device I've been dreaming about for years. So that was kind of weird, but that's fine. But I looked at it, and it changed everything again. And it felt very much like the late 90s, so I started to start a company which is focused on helping other companies do that. And again, it's the same pitch. We recycle pitches, they work well, but what we offer is a line of services to help companies think about what they want to do in that space. Being strategy consulting, we help companies design for that space, and then we help companies build for that space. And so, when thinking about this topic here, I come in from the perspective of when we meet someone new, whether it's an established company or an entrepreneur who wants to do something in this space, we try to look at it across those bounds, and we try to provide help thinking about all those different aspects. So from a strategy and business point of view, we always start with the questions like, what are your business objectives? What's your market? Who's your user? What is the actual business model? So how are you going to make money, et cetera? And dive in on that. And that's always the first question to ask. And then we kind of look at it from a design perspective as we go from business into concept into design, and you have to understand how do you design so it's not a website anymore, it's this little thing, or it's an iPad. And it's a different medium. So you're not designing websites, you have to understand the interactions and all the different things that this device can do. And so again, it's different. And then as you get into the technology of it, whether it's an iPhone or an Android, there's again a new brand new specialized set of skills. So you really have to understand what's it going to take to do this, whether it's in Xcode and you're doing it native for a platform or HTML5. And we try to help with all those things. We try to help people think through what's the investment required, doing not just the device, but the entire system. Because every, as these guys will well attest, this is just one tiny piece of it. You have to do not just this, but you have to think about the back end and how you're going to build out your complete system. So I guess the challenge is then, so we get lots of different questions, and we get questions like, which store should I be in? Should I be in the consumer store, the enterprise store? Should we do HTML5? Should we do native? And we get a question from that. And our answer is always, it depends. And it comes back to what you're starting with, what your business objectives are, and who your users are. So that's my brief intro. Again, it kind of, if I could say one thing, is you have to think about everything. It's no different than starting any other business, but you have to understand mobile really well. Try to keep it under control.
Sure. All right, so my name is Punit. I'm the co-founder of a company called Zazu, no pitch, but we're a mobile productivity technology. So our products exist on iPhones and Androids today. Actually, I guess I should give you a quick backstory. I am not a technology-oriented person. I don't develop. However, I'm a business person in a very small team, so I've had a very interesting insight into a lot of the different things that go into creating these technologies. So I got out of school and actually rolled right into Zazu. I'm from Northeastern. I'm only 2 years out, so I'm going to say I love you, Northeastern. Sorry, MIT. But the big thing that I did when I got out was I teamed up with a few people and we created a technology that we wanted to commercialize. We said, okay, we don't want to create a mobile application. I think one of the things we want to touch on is just like the market and we learned about it. So we launched our first version of our application back in October on Android and only Android. And we learned a lot from that. And what that's allowed me to do is better place what iPhone users are like today. And when you look at the iPhone market, it's very interesting how it's shifted because you imagine everybody from your grandmother to your daughter playing with your iPhone. But at the same point in time, how has the Android market come in and changed the types of people who are actually using the iPhones itself? Carriers subsidize Androids here a lot. And as a result of that, a lot of people actually went away from iPhone and back onto Android in such a way that the people that we have today as our users on iPhone, they're actually all more mobile. And they're more of the early adopter crowd than the ones who are on Android, who now, it's not just the techie guys that are going after Android. My aunt, who's yay tall interior designer with a big purse, also now has Android X, which is the biggest and ugliest phone you've ever seen in your life. So the market's changed a lot, and that's very interesting. And when I deal with users giving me feedback or complaining or giving suggestions, I find that the most useful ones are actually coming out of iPhone, no longer out of Android as they were when I first launched on Android. So that's a very interesting thing I found out of it. When it comes to people buying your technology, I'm actually also on BlackBerry, and I actually find more people buy my stuff on BlackBerry than anywhere else. Just an interesting perspective to think about when you look at iPhone. Does the market spend money on it? Yeah, they do. They spend more money on apps than Android. They spend less money on apps, however, compared to BlackBerry. So it's a very interesting thing to learn out of it. And I can go into detail later on offline about why that might be. And I guess the only other thing is that when you're looking at whether the iPhone is right for you in the market perspective. Excuse me?
No, it's great. Yeah.
Just kind of the idea that, be very cautious about how you're planning on getting your technology rolled out to your users, because the App Store process, while everyone knows how crazy it is, it actually does impact your business if you're trying to create one off of it, because you can't iterate quickly, you can't email fast, everything is tied to release schedules from Apple itself. So just be very cautious of that when you're going out. So I'm going to leave it at that for the market side of things. Go on others later.
Hi, I'm Rosen. Right now I run a company called Drync, and I'm an advisor on to several iPhone and mobile-related applications, all of whom are in the Boston area. My background, I'm an engineer, and I did go to Sloan. I was fortunate and unfortunate. I started a company while I was at Sloan, and I was fortunate to sell it at the beginning of 2008 to a local company called Ulocate. I was unfortunate in that we barely launched, and we'd raised almost $1 million, and it was looking like the market was crashing. So we ended up selling a little bit earlier than we wanted. It ended up great because Ulocate was acquired by eBay for a nice number. But prior to that, I did 5 venture-backed startups across several consumer segments and wireless as well. But the fortunate part was that I landed at Ulocate, which became Ware, and I found myself managing basically 15 mobile products. Most of them were on deck, you know, the old on deck thing where you spend 6 months or a year selling to AT&T, and eventually you get on deck and you get $1.99 for users who turn it on and forget to turn it off, but they actually never use the app. That was pre-iPhone, and I was looking at this terrible attrition rate and terrible usage rates and not a lot of revenue there. And then the iPhone sort of came on the horizon, and we pivoted the company towards the iPhone, and we launched in partnership with Apple the Wear application, which became one of the most downloaded apps on the iPhone. It's something like, I don't know, 5 or 6 million downloads now. And what was really interesting there was the company essentially was moving from a $1.99 or $4.99 actually subscription model to an ad model. But we really had no idea how that was going to go, and ad rates were really, really low. So we launched the iPhone, and we expected to make advertising revenue, and we really were making none. Downloads went way up, but eCPMs, which is the amount you get paid per 1,000 views of an ad, were just super low. I ended up leaving the company, but what happened was, and this is related to the business model of mobile, is the company learned that while people were browsing location-sensitive information, which is what the Wear app was about, is what restaurants are nearby, what venues are nearby, what shows are nearby, what gas stations have cheap gas, location-sensitive information. They started repurposing local ads from the likes of City Search into the experience, sort of experiential ads where you weren't sure it was an ad. Like if you're looking at this restaurant, East Coast Grill, you might also like the Blue Room, right? And all of a sudden, eCPMs went up by 10x, and that company went from 2 million to 16 million in roughly 24 months, based on this notion of a local advertising network. So the point to take away, when I advise mobile startups, especially these days with whatever it is, 500,000 apps in the App Store, whatever the number is, you've got to have a business model, you've got to have a marketing model, you've got to know how you're going to market the app. I just meet with so many entrepreneurs that have a neat idea and have no idea how they're going to get distribution. And distribution can take the form of partnering with large companies, large brands. I think Punit is doing that with Pepsi, is that right? And a lot of companies have had success with that, where the large brand will promote the app. That's amazing distribution. You're no longer going to get it, by definition, by going into the App Store and hitting the top charts and just going into the stratosphere. That really doesn't happen unless you have a known brand anymore. So, at Ware, we were lucky. We were early. So being early is a good thing, but you can't be early on these platforms anymore. So then you've got to have a marketing methodology. And there's, if you're a big brand and you've got money to spend, there are ways to spend money to get yourself onto the top charts, to drive that. A lot of these apps that come out of the gate now, they're doing really, really well. But actually they're spending, I talked to an advertising network that works with a couple brands that spend $50,000 a day driving downloads of their app. This company works with Groupon and lots of large companies like that, and they were citing several companies that are spending $50,000 a day just to drive, because they know that if they get a user in at $1.50 or $2.50 a download, they know that they can monetize that user well above that. And so there's a science around it. So anyway, I did that, then I left there. I started a company called, I'm also a co-founder of a company called iFooty. iFooty is the top soccer app on the iPhone, soccer tracking stats. And that I did with a developer. So another piece of the equation is to find you've got to have a business person, in my opinion, and a strong technical presence on the team. And that app, we've got about 2 million downloads. Now, it's an example where we haven't been able to monetize it. We do about 60 million impressions a month. Like in the advertising world, that's a big number. Yet, when you're getting paid 50 cents eCPM, that's not very much money, right? That's like, what is it, 3K a month or something like that? Or it's not much. So we're looking at other ways to monetize, sell products through the app. create further engagement and viral and drive and do deals specifically with brands to drive ECCPM up, but it's very, very tough. And then I started Drync, which is around wine. We started as sort of Google for wine. You can look up any wine and just store it in yourself. But I started as a utility, which was nice way back then because we were putting Apple television commercials. We had several 100,000 downloads. But it's very hard to monetize. But I always said if we got to something like 250,000 users, we would monetize through the sale of wine. So again, coming back to what's the business model. The business model here is we use the app as a marketing agent to drive users in at low cost into the system, and then we monetize them through relevant sales of wine. We see you like Chardonnay, here's an offer for Chardonnay. It's a curated sort of Groupon for wine model. But the notion is there's a big platform behind the app, right? We've got an Android app, an iPhone app, we've got a website. We've got a platform where we've got partnerships with wineries, partnership with retailer, and there's a whole model that's lined up to sell wine to our users. So we're right at the beginning of that. What we're seeing is 2 to 4% conversion on impressions, which is really good, and we're working on the monetization piece right now. So I'll leave it at that. But I wanted to emphasize, the marketing of the app and having a business model behind the app before you just dive headfirst into what you're doing.
Great. Thank you, guys. We're ahead of schedule now. So that means more time for Q&A. So, I'll just, let's just do show of hands, and, we might also go to Shirish fairly quickly then. Any questions for these three founders here? Go ahead, Mike.
So when you were talking about a large corporation driving the apps up on the charts, where do they advertise? How do they get to move it up? Where do they get it?
Yeah, I mean, there are several ways they can do that. They can, if it's Pepsi or something, they can put a promotion for your app on their website, right? They get tens or hundreds of thousands of unique visitors across their app. They can drive traffic from their website or one of their partner websites to the App Store, to the Android market, etc. They can do promotions around that. I'm an advisor to another company that's about to launch a big voice over IP app, and there's a partnership where a carrier is going to put placards in stores driving downloads of that app. And that's going to be huge, right? Those guys also have a lot of leverage with the press. So this particular example, these guys are going to call up TechCrunch. They've got a TechCrunch article scheduled on a particular day next week. So you can get tons of leverage out of a big brand.
See how your technology can help that brand or company, and many times when you're starting out, such as my company, we're starting out, we're pretty new at this. They're not going to be willing to pay for it. They don't even bother with that. Instead, try to trade up on something, and marketing is the biggest, easiest thing to get out of the brand.
Okay, we have many more people wanting to come here, so it's clearly a very
So
productive
send
topic.
them to share down over there too.
That was, yeah, it's
All right,
50
so
now.
what I need to have folks do is, if there's space between you and the next person, if you guys can switch over so we can just move some folks in. We're just trying to get the folks that have also pre-registered, so that we just have space so that they're not sitting in the aisle. That's a fire hazard. Sorry about that. It'll be nice and close, you get to know your neighbors. Perfect. Great, so again, somebody figure out who you are.
Yes, back there, and then, go ahead.
Yeah, so my question was for you actually. So you said you started out 2 years ago, and I was wondering if you do not have enough funds, how do you spread awareness about your app? Because you're competing with established companies, established apps, and you necessarily don't have the power management power.
Absolutely. Well, you have to be really, really active. You look at it from the marketing perspective. If you don't have funding, you're not in the position where you're paying to have your downloads done. You're not in the position where you're actually paying for anything to be done to make awareness. So what I've done in turn, I'm the only guy in my company that actually focuses on getting the word out. I go to every single show. So I've been to launch, I've been to disrupt, I've been to demo, I go to every possible thing I can go to get people to see what it is that I do. And this is just typical marketing stuff where you try to get people to really like your technology and chat more about it. Try to get partnerships from people that you meet. From all these conferences, I've met all these big companies that we're partnered with now, and I just took a conversation to something bigger and bigger, and that's how you do it without any money at all.
Yeah, I was curious what the other side of that partnership relationship is. They're driving your marketing. What are you giving them? I mean, maybe some examples.
In the case of the VoIP app that I've been advising or helping, it's minutes. So the carrier's getting minutes, so it's a very direct relationship. But there's got to be value, obviously. I'd like to tell you.
In my case, I'm partnered with Pepsi, and I'm working with their brands underneath their main umbrella. And the first brand that we launched a campaign with is Quaker, and the reason is because my technology today is marketed and geared towards improving your morning. And it's not just that I'm giving them free advertisements, I'm actually allowing them to have interactions with our users based on what we know about them. So if I know that you have multiple appointments during the course of your day, I will let the message be changed to say, hey, I know you're busy today, have a wonderful day. Now that's advertising, and it can be considered annoying, I would absolutely agree with that. But what they're getting out of this is the chance to interact with their customers in a more contextually relevant opportunity, something they can't do unless they were standing in front of you. And that's impossible when you have millions of customers and people that you're trying to target. So I told them that I would provide them with the opportunity to experiment with this interaction, and it's driven surprising interaction rates that has had them coming back again and again. They then volunteered to say, okay, we'll promote you on our Facebook group, which has 500,000 fans. Now, every single status post they get gets a couple hundred to 1,000 likes. So, a couple posts here and there for them is nothing. As a small bootstrap startup, it does wonders for us.
So I've heard so far, just the revenue model, ads, insertion, but also it sounds like sponsorship more and more. Is there, any value or are people still making money from pure downloads, 99 cents, 1.99? Is that still relevant?
I mean, when you're bootstrapped, it makes sense, actually. Because when you're bootstrapped, it makes sense, because you'll make pennies, and it won't make a difference to you if you're making it as a larger company. But when you're starting out, some revenue is better than nothing, because you actually start to be able to cover some of the things that cost. Our long-term strategy is not to make money off of apps. But
I mean, I have a contrasting viewpoint. I mean, we pay for server costs, with Drync. After almost 500,000 users and whatever, we pay for server costs. We have a freemium model where people can upgrade and pay us $5 or whatever. But in the long run, I want to build a $50 million business. So I guess it depends where you're trying to go. But in my opinion, we've made a mistake. We do have a free app, but it's got advertisements and it's limited in a feature set and whatever. We're going to change that around and make the whole thing free, and then allow you to upgrade to some cool stuff like image recognition or whatever that not everybody's going to want. I think that you have to look at your overall strategy, and if it's an eyeball strategy where you're going to then monetize your user base through, say, the sale of wine or something like that, or even through advertising, right, contextual advertising, I think you need to be prepared to go a while until you either can raise money or you've got millions of impressions going or some other way to monetize. Because download revenue it's just small change.
you won't make a business off selling.
I mean,
That's for sure.
there's a few apps, maybe there's, I don't know, 100 apps that have made more than $10 million. I don't know what they are, but there's not many apps that have made a lot of money.
But it's also it's a one-time upfront thing.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a good model that continues to monetize over time, it's kind of short or easy change.
Do you guys have experience on the subscription side of things? Because if you have an app that's very sticky, you can actually have people subscribe to the ability to access whatever it is the service that you're providing. Have you guys played around with that? That might be helpful to a lot.
I haven't, but there are apps like, for my son, I buy all these Dr. Seuss apps, right? And they, well actually that's not, I view like content as a subscription, like you get new content each month. Actually, that's not a good example, but I think content is a great way to go because it's renewable.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the story is there's a lot of different ways to monetize stuff. So I think there's advertising, and I think there is download revenue could be valid. I think there's the freemium model, where you give a set of services and you pay for other things. I think there's subscriptions. We're doing that now for a a large music company where they're going to be selling sheet music online through that, as almost like an iTunes thing. So it comes back to like what do you want to do and what's the strategy. And what's interesting about mobile is it can take you, in brand new directions.
Yes, ma'am.
I was going to observe, not to be cynical, but I'm having a little bit of deja vu to about 1996 or something here in Iowa.
Websites all over again?
Yeah, like, oh, holy shit. But, and that said, I've always, because I have that kind of propensity to see things that way, I have, my bread and butter's always been the B2B market. And I'm curious what you guys, if anybody can speak to what you're seeing in terms of the opportunity for mobile application development within, B2B market as far as doing things like QA, QC, inspection, all the different opportunities within B2B. Purchasing,
Yep.
is anybody?
No, it's like 19, it is like that. And after this, we're going to go out for sushi.
It's on us.
Everyone's invited.
But are you saying that?
Yeah, I mean, we're like, from my company, we're seeing enterprise really take off. More and more companies are getting interested in doing stuff to empower their workers and, automate iPad stuff.
iPad
It's
stuff.
going big, and it's,
Yeah.
it's across the board, medical, even just, kind of Salesforce automation. So there's really, there's a lot of activity there.
And that's primarily fee-for-service type of work that you would do, or is that, have you tried to do, to do some sort of other model? I mean, I'm going back to, again, the late 1990s, remember all the purchasing, I can't even remember the names anymore. Am I dating myself here?
No, that's how I see it.
We're all dated.
That's where I was.
Yeah.
We're all with.
Those sorts of models of getting a percentage of sales that go across the corporate purchasing platform, or
Yeah, I think one of the differences is things are going to go a lot faster this time. So there's already a lot of as I was saying earlier, the mobile part in terms of the business is just the very front end. And so there's all these established players there that have CRM, that have inventory management, and so it's a lot easier for them to take their existing customers and tackle this part than it is for someone new mobile to come back and then replicate all that stuff that's been done.
Right.
You also have security as a major concern, don't you?
Yeah, especially in
It's a big gating factor with adoption.
in the financial markets.
Mobile's really just the channel that you're accessing people or employees or clients. If you're building a technology that's for
Can you speak
enterprise.
up? Back over, can't hear you.
Sure, if you're building a technology for enterprises, being on mobile is really just saying I'll give you access through a smartphone. And let's say if it's security that's a concern, it's the same thing as building a module for somebody's existing SAP system that just needs to be integrated in and their own servers. I mean, it's really important to also look at mobile as just a client. You have to be building a technology that's bigger behind the scenes that's actually powering it. That's how it goes.
This is a question for Brad. You mentioned something about being a partner with Apple. Could you expand upon that a little bit?
Yeah, that's
What that
and
is
then
and how
in
do
these
you-
days that's a tricky thing to be, actually. But back when the iPhone was launching, they were actually a little bit desperate to have solid brands producing apps. So we like many had relationships there, and they were looking for developers, and we were willing to drop everything we were doing and go do that. And in doing so, they did a lot of promotion for us. If you want to know more about that, I mean, I can help you if that's something strategic. They're super sensitive to. They don't partner very easily. So it's got to be totally strategic. You have to know what their roadmap is essentially, and have to fit right into it. At that time, it was location-based services was huge because they were launching the platform.
You guys know you think of applications that might come out, in this 500,000 app ecosystem and had very few users at their launch, and sort of had another bite at the apple and sort of figured it out. For me, I'm thinking I know of none that you either sort of did it right and took off and got the buzz at the beginning, or I don't know of any that sort of took off after 6 months or a year and a half in terms of becoming big. So the question is, do you know any of those, and does that mean that you got to get it right right away in terms of how you launch, and if you don't get that signal that you're getting a lot of users, might as well move on, or yes or no, or not.
So is user traction important?
At the beginning.
Well, I'm building a consumer app, and for me, it's not important that I have every iPhone user, but it's important to me that I have a whole bunch of users that stick to it, really like what they're doing. So if I get 20 million users, that's awesome, but if I get 20,000 that are so incredibly sticky and I'm able to actually monetize off of those, not just through ads, but let's say through a subscription to the service that I'll be providing, that's fine for me. If you're talking about getting big, I've never seen anyone that's, top of the charts. It's awesome right from there.
So, yeah, I got a question. The announcement said we have 5 speakers. I respect you don't put the speakers, right? Why would you got 3?
Well, one is hidden here, and
We actually asked one to,
one, we said no.
we asked
Because
this stuff,
it's too much to manage, and you guys will be here all night, so.
Okay.
Did you have a question? No.
I'll
Okay.
ask later.
All right, no, you can ask now, we still have time.
It's a point of order.
No? All right. One final question before we have Shirish come and sort of do the cooking course.
Yeah, and
Yes, sir.
also, after this, looks like a lot of you guys are developer itself, so
Yeah.
I might not spend that much time. I might just do some advertising for the SIG itself, and then open up the discussion, and we'll just continue the discussion.
Okay, well, I think there are people who want to see the recipe. Yeah, go ahead.
Just a quick question. More as a user, not as a developer, and somebody who's very interested in it. The connection to me, and your comments today about the downloads are likely not where the money's coming, and yet most of the apps I as a user have are not subscription-based, some are, but most are not. The ones I have are phenomenally useful. It makes me think that this whole model is going to break, I guess after you guys have your sushi. But where I see an upside is with Apple, with the connection between, I assume with the App Store, number 1, number 2, and Apple's cloud move, I assume that connections between these platforms, that is desktops and where these things are, and the iPad is going to prove valuable. Does that open up a huge avenue? Does that now open up look, we'll sell you the $50 or the $250 app here, like what is Dragon, $200 for that? And the download here is free. Is that the next stage for at least all the apps I find useful, the drawing apps and the like? Are they really going to get monetized on this side? Is that where the money's coming?
Yeah, or through content. I mean, it's definitely about taking their content. I mean, like the Drync app's a good example of the Drync app I have has a store where on the iPad we can purchase additional templates to draw into for my kids and stuff like that. But anyway, I do think going across platforms, and some platforms will garner more money than others.
Okay.
I think you gotta look for it. And I met with a funded entrepreneur this morning who is doing a productivity app. And, his strategy was they get it out and make it useful. If you make it really useful and people like it, there was another strategy of how to monetize parts of it in the same way that freemium models were done. Another one, which is how to monetize it with corporations, and make it part of what they do. So, I agree. Really like.
So there will be connections with this and everything else you can get out.
Really, I look at it and I go, there's just 100 million devices being sold this year for iOS. So everyone's on it. And so that's a large user base. If you can drive that, you can find the revenue.
Is there a new category? There's B2C, obviously, drawing and meetings and all that. And there's B2B, which sounds like it's coming still. Is there a B2B2C where your pair is a business, but it's meant for the end user of that business? It sounds like Quaker is kind of like that. So Quaker pays you, but you produce the application, so people that have the cereal will have a good time. And so really the funder is the business.
Sure. In any case where advertisers are footing the bill for something, then that can be B2C. In the Quaker example, they're advertisers and they're paying us to have interactions with users. It's not like the end product is transferring from Quaker to us to users.
Any other questions? Now, Shirish is going to do this cooking show type of thing, right? So,
Yeah, that's what I'm trying. Before that, what I will do is, I'll just quickly go through advertisement of this, our group.
okay.
You know, we have been running this group as a panel and mostly focused on business. And what we're trying to do this year from this season on is that have a business as well as technology challenges. So we want to talk about, okay, we know what the business challenges are, but what about the technology challenges? If you are especially an MBA and don't have a technology background, or if you are a technologist but haven't got that experience yet, what are the pitfalls that you want to avoid? So those are the things that we're trying to, sort of go through. Today, we're going to basically focus on 10 points. Okay, what do you need to do to get an iPhone app started? What are the things that you need? So if you look at it, the next month, October 27th, we're going to talk about, how do we start a project? How do we put together a team, and how do we do the, environment selection? On the same day, we're going to talk about funding. So that's the funding night. Then on November, we're going to talk about how do we partner with, partnering. At the same time, how do we talk about, we're going to talk about technical challenges in terms of design and workflow, how do we do those things. So, so if you go to our site, this information is all there. And in December, we're going to do the networking, right? So in the networking, we said that we're going to do a pitch night. So you can come and pitch it. If you're just pitching without anything, you'll get 3 minutes to pitch your topic. But if you bring a demo, you get a 7 minutes.
Preferably a mobile app demo.
Mobile app demo, yes. So it's a pitch and demo. We did this last June, and it was a huge success. There were quite a few people who just walked in and stuff like that. So just to give you guys what we're planning for all year. So we have everything, prototyping, so marketing and business development, and these things will be we'll have it on our site with the concise information in terms of what we're going to do there, and we'll have the speakers on there as well. So back to the hopefully it's a fun part.
There is some thought behind what goes in which month.
Yeah. So, and if you have any burning questions, and if you have any burning issues that you would like to, us to address, please feel free to send us that information. And if you really like to get involved in this group and drive some of the issues that you are really like to see, please do that. And we are always needing help. So, having said that, so what I put down is 10 steps. Just simple 10 steps how to get started. First of all, you have to have a Mac, right? You can't do development without a Mac for iPhone. And you have to have iPhone or iTouch. So, and you cannot use the old G4 Macs. Before, up to iOS 3, you could hack a G4 and use that. But now, Apple did so many things with their iOS that you can't use it. The reason being that they're on Intel based, and they want to make sure that the user experience that you provide with the application is to the top. So you must have a Mac and iPhone. Second most important thing is to basically register. Register for the developer site. It's amazing how much information is here. It's really useful site. I would highly suggest that you purchase their iOS developer package. That will give you this site where you can start, installing the certificates, and you can do a provisional profiles onto your app so that you can put it in your cell phone, install on your cell phone. So you must do that. Thirdly, so to start development, you can download the Xcode just to do some development and run through the simulator. You don't need to have a developer package. So you can actually just register in their developer site for free. You can download the iOS and also Xcode, and you can run the Xcode, and you can run the Xcode in a simulator environment. So this is a weather app, and you can get a lot of applications. That's just an example. What I've seen before is that people basically take these example apps that they put it on and just start with that. And they just make modification to it and create their own app. Now it's getting more complex, and so you just run it and it'll run. It'll provide a simulator, and it exactly looks and feels like an app. In contrast with the Droid, I have a very hard time using Droid. iPhone environment are very clean. Once you get into their thinking how to do development, it's very easy to use.
How do you simulate multi-touch in the developer?
The pads are multi-touch.
Oh, okay.
So if you have the mouse, they have multi-touch. It just this is actually before they didn't have that thing. It was really you couldn't simulate a lot of those things. But now more and more the pads are multi-touch. You can do a key to simulate the multi-touches and so forth. It's getting more powerful than before. I was talking about Droid. I have a really difficult time. I am a Java developer. I have done Java development for the last 10 years, and I can't still figure out how to do Android. Go figure. So,
Sorry, which version of Xcode is this?
what is it?
Which version of Xcode is this?
This is the latest version. This
0.8 or 9.2?
4.3 something. But it's the latest version of Xcode. I think I haven't done the iOS 5 yet, so they are coming with iOS 5. This is iOS 4 point something. I think they're on the latest 4 code. Am I doing okay?
You're doing fine.
So that's what the project is. So now the Xcode, the software programming is so powerful. They put so much smarts into it. You hook up your iPhone to it, and if you try to install it, it automatically downloads your certificate and everything. So last time when I downloaded a new one, I put it on. I was expecting to do a few steps, but I was surprised that it downloaded the profile itself and installed it. I said, how can you do that? It had even asking me to do it. Asking me, do I really want to do it? So it's getting really powerful, and it does a lot of things behind the scene, just to keep in mind. One thing that you have to do that I would like to mention is that on the certificate side, there is something that you have to do. Hopefully do code signing. Let me just see if I can show you here. I'll just stop you need to do it. To put in iPhone, the code needs to be signed. And for that, Apple provides a certificate, developer signing certificate that you have to install in the computer. For that, they have a very extremely well documented step-by-step on the code signing, on their site. So if you follow their step-by-step instruction, you will not go wrong. And I have done that multiple times. And you have to follow their step-by-step, and it will work fine. So I think, just to test it out, this is your simulator. Just to test it out, you can just choose here which device that you want to install on, and it will automatically detect it, and it will put it on to your iPhone. And I have seen here that I just installed it on here and just tested it out.
How long should this all take, including downloads and like? Can this all be? Can you within a matter of a Saturday? Can you go download it, everything you needed,
Yeah.
and at least put a sample app on an iPhone?
So that's a good question. The Xcode is a 1 gigabit or giga, software. And I couldn't figure out, when I downloaded, I couldn't figure out why the hell this thing is so huge. I what the hell they're putting on? But recently, just a few months back, I found out that everything that they had on their website is in the Xcode. So you don't need internet at all. Everything that you can find in their website is in the Xcode. So I would highly recommend that you utilize the Xcode to its fullest extent. All the documentations are there. Even the sample codes are in there. So that's why it's big. So having said that, it's the amount of time it takes to download. Then after that, once you put it on, if you have done the programming before, it's half an hour. It runs right off the box. And once it runs in a simulator, you just put it on, hook it up your device, and then it's up and everything. So it's half an hour to an hour. So that's very much
Sorry, it's too easy, huh?
Yeah.
I don't believe the half an hour part.
Just a quick question or clarification. Because when I started my company up a couple of years ago for this program, the part that slowed me down the most was that they wanted proof of incorporation and documents. It wasn't like an individual could sign up, and it took, they actually vetted that. So
you could sign up individually. But if you sign up as a corporation, they really do want to make sure that you are that corporation, right? Because I could basically go and say I'm Coca-Cola and sign up. So that's what they do.
Back there. Sorry.
Okay, so a couple things on that. So I don't know if anybody's familiar with TestLight, but there's basically a company that sort of acts like an enterprise application supplier, and so you can basically be part of theirs to be able to distribute your application without having to go through the whole iPhone process. So if you're just sort of getting going, then you can sort of sign up with them and then be able to distribute applications in sort of a beta environment. But my question was mainly back to, you're talking about how, I think, Dan, you had mentioned HTML5 versus Xcode, and, one of my concerns is sort of, code reusability and sort of cross-platform stuff. And it's interesting that you say that you don't like the Android platform, because I found Eclipse with Android to be completely a piece of cake for Java developers. And I get into Xcode and I've got this Objective-C thing, which is, I can't understand why in the world anybody developed this particular language when there's so many other things that sort of fit the bill. Not to mention that if the architecture of Objective-C and the sort of iOS is, way behind some of the other platforms. But the question is that for HTML5, I'd like to be able to develop something that was very cross-platform, so that, basically the browser, in all of the features and facilities of the browser is what's doing all the work. And so how does that, the first question is, what's the experience in building applications like that? And the second thing is that does that allow you to circumvent some of the process of dealing with Apple as far as revisions and things like that?
Yeah, let me take, first of all, let me take on that, we can argue it after this thing, but I'll just mention to this. The Objective-C is the best architecture that I've seen so far. I make my living doing Java. Java is a garbage. it's if you don't code correctly, and I have done that. I've seen people doing so bad coding. Java is very forgiving language. Anybody can do it. Objective-C is extremely not forgiving language.
Is that a good thing?
It's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Non-tech is forgiving means loosey-goosey, and non-forgiving is more stringent in structure.
I spend a lot of time cleaning people's code. I just did it today. So that was
one more question.
We'll go to the HTML side. So there is two things, right? HTML is, if you look at the HTML, if you look at browser, it's not native app. And if you're creating an iPhone app, there's a native app. So that's one thing we'll probably talk next session. So how do you architecture it? How do you make that decision? Why you go web versus the native app? We'll talk in the next session.
The fundamental question I thought was, can you go from a certain code base and have popular application for different devices
Because
as well as HTML5. Is
And I
that
know that
possible?
there are some people who, I think, tried to basically implement a Java virtual machine in Objective-C so that you could basically write Java code and basically have it being run on the iPhone. And I think to your point, it sounds like the primary reason to consider it is like, are you willing to drink the Apple Kool-Aid and that it needs to be a native app or not, as opposed to.
It's not, it's basically having a native app versus a browser-driven app. So that's, there's a whole different architecture and those things. I will visit in the next session.
So if I
Back here.
I was just going to say a couple of things. This is great. It's a great topic. So there's a couple of considerations. I think from a design point of view, when you're thinking about a browser-based, like a web app, because you were asking a question about can you skip Apple and just release a web app. I think it depends how close you want to be to the platform. So, there's the issue of adornment and you want a browser and some of the things that come around with it. So that's question one, but it's absolutely a great question from a investment point of view, because you have iPhones and Androids and all sorts of new devices coming out, like how to, manage the investment, especially for a company. And, there's lots of different ways to do it. You can take HTML5 and then wrap it in native wrap it, and put out a real app, and we build apps that way where half of it's native and half of it is you're just browsing through stuff. So
Plus, there's also the imperative to get some apps out quickly to enterprises this year and next.
Yep.
So native apps, and it's sort of slower in that process.
Yeah, in that process. But there's companies that put out stuff that is wrapped that way. Looks like an app, feels like an app, and it's a slightly different experience because you're going from page to page as opposed to kind of behind the scenes doing stuff.
Yeah, a lot of it comes down to user experience, in my opinion. We built Drync as web views, as HTML to start with, and very quickly, first we quickly realized the user experience was really bad, and I still personally believe if you're building consumer apps, the bar is so high now, you have to build a native app, in my opinion. I don't think HTML5 cuts it. And this is just my opinion, but for business apps, B2B apps and the like, code reusability, there's a lot of other factors that come into play, and I think HTML5 is a great solution there. But when it comes to consumer experience, you got to bite the bullet and write the Objective-C.
Good point, guys. UX matters a lot. One other question back there?
It's just more of a fair warning. Anybody else that's in a crunch or in a startup, if you think that the step between step 2 and step 3 tends to be a lot longer than you've ever planned. If you have a developer thinking they're going to work tomorrow, you got a week and 2 days at a bare minimum of corresponding back and forth with Apple with documents you need and think you whatever have or need to produce. So,
Actually, my experience is that all these steps can take most of the coding using Xcode. Dan will tell you he'll get lost in for a whole weekend just battling with Xcode. I've seen it personally.
I'll make this point. They have improved the Xcode tremendously. The latest release is just. I think what I'm guessing is that they probably release their internal code, their internal Xcode that they are using. So it's really, really slick.
It's getting better and better.
I have a business question related to this. So there's no pricing power anymore. You have to give it away for free. There is no barrier to entry. Someone anywhere in the world can come up with a new application within half an hour. At that rate, there's so many smart people out there. There'll be lots of apps. How do businesses? So I see two entities really winning: the users, great, consumers, Apple. What about the businesses? Most of you here who are looking to make money from this whole venture.
You have to have a platform strategy. You've got to have a complete holistic strategy for world domination.
Anybody else want to chime in?
So projections I saw was 2013, something like 25 billion transactions will go through the App Store. So Apple's taking 30, but the rest is,
I'm building Cal, so eventually I will take over more.
Yeah, at least the first one.
Any other comments, contributions on that topic?
Well, I wanted to say something about that because one of you guys had said that it's just a client and that the real business is going to be server side sort of new processing and things like that. And so this thing, the applications are just sort of client side, although there's lots of really cool UI features and things like that. At the end of the day, the business is probably built around something that's going on the server, and you shouldn't lose sight of that because there's that part.
Great.
So I think we can still ask the business question. We still
Yes,
have
now free flow. You can ask anything you
we
want.
have still 45 minutes. So
Yeah, it's kind of related to that, which is, how much of the work, the actual technical work, is being done by in-house developers as opposed to specialist boutique firms? I'm thinking in terms of like the gold rush, the guys who made the money were the people who sold the shovels. So I'm
Sounds like
curious
a
if
Dan
there's
Katcher
any-
question. He makes the shovels.
So, I think it varies. It varies by, lots of different companies' approaches, so, there's a lot of, there is definitely a very, very vibrant market right now, and there's a lot of demand for people to build apps. Those companies across the board, are trying to figure out what their strategy is gonna be and then move on. So without a doubt, that's there. I think when it comes to small entrepreneurs who are launching something new, there's some people who want to just bring on a partner to build everything, or the mobile part of it, and there's some people who really want to, own a piece of it. Again, a guy I talked to this morning was, is doing everything for iPhone themselves, but it is, and they're focused on getting that platform first, and then they're going to have a different strategy potentially for the other platforms. So it's all over the place.
I have another question about investors. Are investors investing in this landscape, or there's at least one investor here? If you did, what are you investing in?
Investors, it's very hard to get an iPhone company funded. Investors are looking for, like I said, a platform strategy. So if you're building a game, they're not looking for one-hit wonders anymore. They don't want to hear that you have 250,000 downloads. They want to hear that you have a platform to deploy 100 games that are going to get engaged users at this level and turn you into $100 million. At the end of the day, they still have multi-billion-dollar funds, or hundreds of millions of dollars in their funds, and they have to show returns. And so it's how are you going to get them to $100 million in revenue? Nothing's changed.
Any other? Yes.
What's a good resource for figuring out, when you're selling marketing and advertising, how is that priced? So like per view, where is there a good resource to figure out, what the benchmarks are for, it sounds like there's probably pretty standard numbers of, every view you get. Is there a resource out there where you kind of just open it up and there's a report that says these are people pay 10 cents a view or whatever it is, or
Google.
just.
Whenever I'm looking for those numbers, it's all over the place. Everybody's sharing.
So that's all, and that's just, it's not very proprietary.
Have they converged? Because in any new medium, what I've realized from web days to now and all that, in the beginning they call sampling. You charge whatever the hell you want, right? And then slowly, as more people come in the picture, it converges into. Has it converged on the ad side of things for iPhone apps?
There's all those studies that come out and say, okay, we polled 50 companies that spend over $1 million a month in advertising, and these are the CPMs that they got. And they come out with those, and that's the best convergence that you're going to find is the products of these surveys. And yeah, there's established norms that click-throughs always get X, views always get Y.
I think what's really interesting in this market, not to avoid the question, but what's really interesting is there's an evolution now. The basic, CPM-based models are going away. Everyone's starting to look at engagement targeting and action, right? So there are new ad units that are coming out that are action-oriented, where you can actually sign up for a coupon, and coupon pays $5 for your email address, right? So as a publisher, you can use that ad unit and put it in your app, and you get paid $5 if someone puts their email in. So at the end of the day, you probably can equate that down to CPM and view-based advertising, but it's all about, with us, we have wine enthusiasts, so our numbers, our advertising numbers are going to be higher CPMs because it's super targeted. So that's really, and then there's arbitrage plays, like there's this new company in Boston called Fixu that I was just learning about, where they just take a room full of PhDs and they're doing, just like people do on the SEM side of Google, they're not doing it across multiple networks, and they're looking for how do you get the most value as a brand paying for advertising, as a publisher putting ad units in your app, how do you maximize that equation by looking across multiple advertising networks and multiple actions, clicks, actions, etc. So there's cool stuff going on.
There's cool stuff. There's also other companies, KIP, KIP, that are starting to do ideas that are built for games. So when you level up, you go up a level, all of a sudden you're not just getting an ad that's congratulating you with that spot from a brand, which is, brands are trying to reach in and give you real dollars, real value for that. And there's a couple companies in the area that are running that as well.
Are there any kind of groups in Cambridge or through this group that are more focused on kind of collaborating and discussing development issues as opposed to, I got the business side covered, so.
There's several iPhone meetups.
There are.
There's one really big one, yeah.
So,
Just go to meetup.com and search on Boston.
okay.
There's one called Coco Heads, which is
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, okay, and like, they were in Cambridge, so.
They're
Yeah.
all over here, yeah.
Ah.
Boston, New York.
they meet in
I think if we don't have any more questions, we should just do, networking, milling around, whatever. And you guys will hang out for a few more minutes. I'll be here, ask any more questions you may have. Thank you very much.